Hey, welcome back. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 in Conversations with Michael and Jermaine. Michael, how are you today?
I'm excellent, Jermaine.
Oh, that's a great way to start the day.
Excellent. Yeah. I
Yeah,
like I like the word excellent because it means I'm feeling great now and there's always room to grow.
it's always going to grow to our point of last episode. We
Yeah,
talked
right.
about
Yeah.
growth. Yeah, I've
Uh,
been, is that these, our conversations have been so wealthy. And as I reflect on them, so I go back and I re-listen to the podcast. And thank everyone for continuing to listen. It's a really good way to listen and then use it as a way to move forward for the next month. Last episode, I remember we were talking about it. Someone, I think, Christina Thomas was the name of the. Here we go. Thanks to Michael for putting that up. That said, she enjoyed this episode and liked hearing the different views about what growth means. And I was there too. I was there, Christina. I was there too as I reflected on my personal growth right now. I'm working on a few things in my own creative life, and I find that accepting the next level of growth can be as scary as the stagnation of growth not happening. Any reflections from you from the last episode, Michael, that you found yourself growing into?
oh, I look, I'm just building on the things that the foundations that I've already established, right? So when it comes to growth, I mean, growth is something that well, let's talk about, for example, imagination. Right?
Yeah. This week was
Yeah,
exciting because
imagination. Let's start with our topic for this week.
yeah, yeah,
Because imagination is something that the power of imagination, the magnificence of that faculty of imagination is something I came into late in my life. And I don't necessarily like to use the word late because I'm happy that as long as I'm alive, I'm not late. Okay.
yeah,
So the whole idea is, but once I discovered the power of imagination, so many things that I had dreamed about, wondered about, daydreamed about, started to manifest.
yeah. It's funny because when you called me this week to say that you wanted this week's episode to focus on the power of our imagination as breakthrough points of the imagine using the imagination, I became really excited. But you just shared that you discovered that later in life. What made you discover? Well, what triggered your imagination later in life? You think?
I was searching, okay? Now, was I searching for, what I was searching for was a way to bring the things that I thought about into reality,
Mm,
okay? And that basically was what I was looking for. Now, in my search, I came across imagination. I was doing a topic on imagination for my radio program, Life and Relationships, right? And it was some years ago when I was going through the research that I came across, the insights. 'Cause now sight sees things, insight sees into things. Imagination gives you the view of seeing into things before the rest of the world sees it. So, it's like a preview of coming attractions of things to come. Yes. So when I started looking at this thing, I said, but everything in life, okay, outside of nature, it all started with imagination. It started in the mind of someone. This conversation we're having now, you in New York, I'm in Toronto, and we're able to link as if you're right here in my living room. It came out of someone's imagination. Someone said, how did I able to do so and so? But it even started before that. You started with a camera, then it started with stills and movies, etc., etc. The What you do so well as an artist, as a performer, as a writer, as a singer, it all started in your imagination. You didn't just get up and start doing it.
and I agree with you with that. I do believe that, and that's why I love this topic. Accessing our imagination, having our imagination be something that we are aware of, is a big into problems, into creating solutions for the things that we're going through in life. In terms of even right now, I'm working on my projects and thinking of how do I creatively solve the problem of financing and producing and creating the works I want to create. And it does require a certain level of the imagination. Do you believe that we are born into this world with our imagination accessible?
Imagination is like potential. Okay, everyone's born with potential, but not everyone actualizes that potential. Not everyone learns how to use that potential.
Hmm.
Okay, imagination is a faculty. It's there. Okay, and it starts in childhood. It's important that our caregivers understand this so they can help a child to create. Now, our parents, and I know certainly mine, didn't have that. They didn't, what I'm talking about now, they knew nothing about. But when they used to encourage you to dream, say, "Okay, you want to do so and so, son? Yeah, go ahead and do so and so. You know, you want to do this? Yeah, go and so and so." Right? When you see a child playing take a box, and they imagine that box is a spaceship. Okay, in their mind, that is very, very real. Okay, but it's just where it starts. So if you encourage a child to use their imagination, so what you're doing is developing, to answer your question, the potential to use that faculty, to develop that faculty called imagination. Okay, to turn things into, now first of all you say, okay, how do I, later on in life someone took that same box and said, now how do I turn this thing into whatever, a
Yeah,
spaceship. All right, because a spaceship is really like, it's kind of like, could be a cylindrical box. Okay,
I agree with. I
deep
think
inside, right?
I teach right now, and I teach in the creative field as a professor, and I found that I ask my students a very important question. I think one of the most important questions I ask them at the beginning of the semester, and it is the what is your impossible dream? And how I qualify that is saying that dream of yourself that you would do if you had no limitations. And by limitations, I often qualify as if you're black, you're immigrant, or you're woman, you're all these things that the world has put on us. If I don't have enough money, I don't have enough access, if those things weren't in the way, what would you be? What would you do? And and there's a question I asked myself a few years ago, because for me that's an invite into your imagination of yourself. Can you project versions of yourself? Can you go inside and go, where do I live outside of limitations? This is the first thing I find with the imagination. It invites us into no limits of ourselves, right? Because anything is possible. And I often find that one of my students yesterday asked me, she was like, Professor, how do you practice that imagination? Because when I ask that question, I can see the difference. As I always say to my students, there are no wrong answers. And so I find that they sometimes go to the limited spaces of, I want to be wealthy. I want to win an award. I want to get this job. And I was like, yeah, but I'm literally inviting you into your imagination. What is possible? And I find the most interesting answers are the answers like, I want to create my own universe. I want to go to Mars. I want to. So for me, it's that mind that can really see themselves past the physical limitation of the world, which is the imaginative space that literally, as a child, has no limits. If we can still have access to that as adults, I really do believe that we can create creative solutions for a lot of the things that are going on for us in life, whether it be financial problems, problems with relationships, problem with creativity, because I find that the imagination can become a wealthy space to go into to develop expansions of how you can problem solve and create layers of self and layers of being and living. Do you
Okay,
find that to be true?
absolutely. But every time I listen to you, you raise a number of questions. Okay, but let's start with, what is imagination?
Yes.
Okay, imagination is being able to see the possibility of something, to create a picture of something in your mind that you would like to achieve, and being able to see it clearly enough. It's like a very well defined sketch of something, a picture of something. It's clear. All right. It's like a snapshot of life that you're seeing. And you see yourself, whatever it is, doing it, how you're going to get there, what it looks like when you get there, the road you're going to take to get there, how long it's going to take to get there, who's going to help you on that journey to get there. So you're very clear about these things, because I want to make one thing very clear that I've learned, which is a distinction between imagination and daydreaming.
Interesting. Yeah, 'cause you said something beautiful just now that I'm going to call out because it's so powerful. the ability to create the possibility, and I want to add on to that, of self. The
Mhm.
possibility of self is so like being able to go, this is possible. I remember as a young kid, I maybe it was my young ego, but I thought if I wanted to be a neurosurgeon, I could be. I just need to apply myself. It wasn't because I didn't have the aptitude or, but I chose to be an artist because that was the loudest calling for me. But I felt in my imagination that anything about myself is absolutely possible if I apply myself. And once I can see it, then it's possible to achieve it. But you said the difference between daydreaming now and the imagination. What do
Mhm.
you find as the demarcation?
Okay, so daydreaming is, let's say you're looking out a window and you're saying, wow, it would be nice to go out there. Lovely day, everything looks good. And then you walk away from the window,
Hmm.
okay? For whatever reason. Imagination is saying, wow, it's a nice day out there. I can see myself out there. I think I'm going to go out there. Okay?
Imagination is an act.
So
It's a
you
very
sit at the
active
window.
thing.
Yeah,
It's
you
an
sit. It's a
active
very.
thing.
It's imagination is active. You put wheels to the imagination. Okay, whereas daydreaming, it just kind of sits there, and you can look out that window and you can just daydream into the day and whatever it is you're projecting into that day, or you can go out and actually become involved in the day.
Hmm.
You
Do you
see,
think our imagination then is learned, inherited, or is something we naturally possess?
I think it's imagination. It's we naturally possess, as I said, the capacity for it's a faculty of our mind, of our brain. Okay, the ability to imagine. It's a part of our brain that allows us to do that. Okay, so MRI studies proven that when you're imagining, there's parts of your brain that lights up. All right,
Hmm.
so therefore, and the real proof is simply this: you or anyone watching us, think of anything that you have achieved now, and the evidence is there that it starts in your imagination. To the extent that you achieve it, to the extent that you've reached it or not reached it, it depends on how defined that goal is in your mind.
And to
It's
that point,
imagination is the evidence of things not seen. And I'm going to say things
almost
not
like
seen.
faith.
Things not seen by okay, so you see, religion calls it faith too.
Yeah,
To me,
yeah.
that's what it means. The evidence of things not seen. Now you're seeing it in your mind, okay? But when it manifests, the rest of the world sees it. So you see it first. You have
I'd,
to see it first.
I'd love to hear what people think. So please make sure at this point that you're like, subscribing, and commenting. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
As I'm thinking about it, is there something that then that you imagine in a younger version of yourself that either manifested in a very real way or manifested beyond what you thought it was going to be, or came from your imagination and it didn't necessarily align to what you thought it was going to be? Is there any specific like connecting points to that you
Something that
can?
I imagine that I'm now doing.
Yeah, or being.
Everything in my life, where I am or where I am not, is a result of my imagination or lack of it. Okay, look, as a broadcaster,
Mm,
I imagine that. I look, as a child, I imagined because I fell in love with radio.
yeah,
Radio was a passion for me. Radio played a special part in my life. I dreamed about radio. Okay. I imagined myself, I listened to broadcasters and I imagined myself doing what they do.
yeah,
Okay. I saw them, I actually saw them in my imagination before I even actually visited a radio station to see what it looked like on the interior. Because all I was aware of was a sound coming out of the box and I wanted to be that sound as well.
mm,
How it was going to happen, I don't know. But then my imagination motivated me to go find out about how it happened, visit radio stations as I got older. And the more I knew and the more I learned about radio and how it worked, and I started reading about it, okay, and I started looking at pictures about it. And then fortunately, I met people. I visited a radio station, RJR.
hmm,
I actually, befriended someone there, one of the announcers. I moved in, and it just evolved to where I
It's
am
funny. So
now.
there's a certain amount of follow through. What I love about what you're saying, and it's reminding me of moments for myself, it does require a follow through. There is something that we can get stuck at. And I find that my young students and some of my friends, and I do find, and I love this topic, that imagination is becoming one of those rare tools in our lives because we're not practicing it enough. And in the next few years, it's going to be something that we need to practice more. But we get stuck at the how. You see these things that your brain is imagining, and you're like, but how is that going to be possible? And I do believe that the imagination can be fully accessed without needing to know the how. For me, a specific, like I remember seeing very, very visibly myself on an American airline flight leaving Jamaica and coming to New York. I imagined that really young, and it kept playing back in my brain. And I'd moved away from Jamaica, and I'd lived away, and I had, was practicing away, and
Yeah.
I always flew in the airline. And then I remember one particular flight and I remember coming home to Jamaica, visiting Jamaica for vacation, and flying from Jamaica to New York on an American airline flight. Something in me was like, that was the moment that you had seen in your imagination. It was so loud to me that I felt for the first time. And by that point, I'd lived away for like maybe 3 years. But
Yeah.
that particular moment was the moment I realized that I had accepted that I was now a citizen of the world. And that was the moment that my imagination had seen in
Yeah.
my thought, in my active space when I was younger.
Yeah.
And those things for me really connects back to that's why the imagination is required and so wealthy, because you can see versions of yourself if you're open that is projected into the future. And I do have so many of those stories that I go, oh yeah, I imagined this. I did imagine this when I was young.
Everything. You see, as I'm watching you recount this story, right? I'm seeing the excitement in you because imagine it's exciting. Okay, you remember you just said, well, for example, let me use one line of what you just said. You saw yourself on the American Airlines flight, and you saw it first. You couldn't be on it if you didn't see yourself on it. Okay, and this is where I'd like to caution. Okay, because imagination and doubt are two very close cousins, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
point here, you can imagine yourself, oh no, that's never going to happen. And you start to imagine why it's not going to happen. And all of these things come into play, and the imagination dies.
yeah.
So one has to be bigger than the other. You have
And
to
oh,
know,
and that's why we got to protect it, because sometimes in your imagination, you can't tell everybody what you see.
you know,
Not everyone. Sometimes when you imagine something that you're about to achieve, if you can't, sometimes you shouldn't explain it or overshare it, because it's sometimes it's such
okay,
sacred insight that
yeah.
you're receiving.
Jay, that's a big question you just opened a while ago. Because there's always a question, should you tell people about what you're dreaming about or keep it private? Or should you share it so they can? So now, my answer to that, when I talk to you about a plan that I have, or something I'd like to achieve, you never say to me, well, no, because be careful who you talk to about your dreams and what you're imagining. Okay? It's the same thing with parents. Oh no, child, you can't do that. You never do this. You can't do this. It's the same thing with friends. Be careful who you talk to because people will project their own negativity on your imagination and they're dream killers. You see what I'm saying? Okay,
Yeah.
say
Oh,
to the
I know. Oh,
person,
I know. You're speaking to church right now, because I'm like, yeah. Oh, I know.
no matter how fantastic, okay, the idea is, right? And I'm listening to them saying, "Oh, Jay, that's a big one. Tell me what you're seeing. How do you think this is going to happen?"
So
So
that's
I
again,
now
you start
invite you.
curating. Yeah, you start curating who you
Yes. So
because I remember
tell
when
me
I
what.
first decided to create my own works that are I'm going to write Jamaican folklore, and it's going to be on the big stages around the world. And I remember saying to someone, and one of the first thing that they said to me was, "Then people are going to understand that." And it was what it
Ah,
was for me was a moment of realization that I can't share my dream with you moving
with
forward.
exactly. So it's not with people. It's who you're sharing it with.
And
You
then they
want.
had other friends who were like, "Oh my goodness, what an amazing concept,
Yeah.
Jack Mandora!" As a, oh, whoa,
Right.
okay, I can't
Okay.
wait. So because you
Some.
also need you need. they say what your water grows. Whatever you water is or nourishes grows. And if you're growing the imagination into an exciting space, I
Yeah.
do believe one of the keys to imagination is the excitement that comes with the things that you're seeing. You're supposed to be excited about your own future. You're supposed to be excited about the things that you're imagining for yourself, which is why I go back to the idea. I was watching something this morning, and Mystic Copeland, who's a brilliant ballerina who just retired as a principal dancer and did so many wonderful things. I think when I watch her and watch other amazing people in a similar space like her, they trigger the imagination, and that's why representation matters. Seeing people do things along the way that you've been doing it or in new ways opens up the space for the young mind to imagine themselves doing that and then more. That's why it's important.
A great The greatness of a parent, I believe, is the ability to allow, to facilitate, to encourage the child to dream. Okay, they give oxygen to your dreams, the things that you're imagining. Okay, so if you came to me and you said, Michael, I want to do this folklore thing. And I'm saying, okay, tell me what you're seeing. How is this going to happen? So I'm encouraging you now to think more, to create, to add the finishing touches to the painting. A great, work of art. The artist sketches out the thing, and then they go about doing the fine touches until they get there, until the picture says, oh, yeah, and they're clear, and that's the picture. Okay, and that's where you start working from. So I would say to you, Jay, tell me more about this Jack Mandor thing. And what is it? What are you thinking? How's it going to work? How are you going to do it? Okay, so right away, I'm encouraging you, okay, to build on what you are imagining. And you have actually done that and you've started that. It's a good thing you didn't say anything more to that person. So
Oh
be
yes, I had to learn,
careful.
because I had to learn to recognize that what I was gifted was, because also it was, because to the point you're making, you can also imagine yourself in a trap space and keep yourself there.
Oh, but you see, but that's where doubt comes in. That's doubt. So beware the doubt. Be mindful of it, Don't ignore it.
Yeah.
Doubt really exists, and it's as real as imagination.
Yeah, I
Because
can't see
what
myself past
because
this financial place. It's
that
very rare
trap
that you're going to get
space,
past it.
right? So that trap space, and I said to you, what does that look like?
Yeah,
And you can start describing that space. Oh, I'm in a box, or I'm in a prison, or I'm in a this, and I feel like I can't move. I'm no, because this is what you're imagining. Okay,
yeah,
you're doubting,
yeah.
right?
Because I mean, it really goes back to the idea, and I love that, like, this is such a through line to almost so many parts of ourselves, and it has nothing. And I'd love to hear like some more comments about, like, from my other friends who are in different areas. We're philosophers and artists and anthropologists, but I'd love to hear the medical mind and the business mind and all the other minds and how they use imagination as access points. Because I
Mhm.
do speak to friends. One of my dear friend who's a financial advisor, and I find that our ability to speak in the imagination and in practical ways can seem to feel that they're counter, but I do believe that they work hand in hand. Like, the practical things that you need every single day
Yeah.
does require that, and that's why I find creative solutions or imaginative solutions
Mhm.
are these rare, beautiful tools. Like, how can you look at this? If you can't see yourself past your financial anxiety and doubt, you probably won't get past it. You have to also be willing to, can I see myself in the future not having this anxiety? Can I see myself in the future creating this kind of space for myself? Can I see myself having this kind of lifestyle or relationship
Yeah.
or access? And you really do, it has to be created in the mind, because it goes back to the philosophical idea that whether you believe or think you can or you can't, you're right.
You're reading my mind. I was about to say that. So whether you think it's possible or not possible, you're right. So you have to. You see, it's about you. It comes back to you. You make that choice. If you don't think it is possible, it's not going
It's
to
not going to be
happen. It
possible.
cannot happen. Okay? Whatever you think is possible will happen if you pursue it. Again, I'm going back to using your thing about writing folklore and Jackman. The person to speak to with the best of interest. It's not a bad. The person who was, saying, "Oh no, I don't." You think people? No, no, no. I don't know if he knew anything about that, or if he's in that area, or if he has ever. Right? You go to someone who has created something or something close to what you look and say, "Well, What? How did you do so and so? Or can I talk to you? Can we have coffee? And how did you do so? Where did it start? Where did it come from? What happened? What did you do first? So right away, you are now speaking to persons who have done what you are seeking to do, what you're imagining is possible. Because whatever it is you're doing, for the most part, someone has done it already. And if it's not done yet, it's not because it's impossible. It's only impossible until someone does it.
I
Everything
agree with
was
you.
impossible until someone. So you
Yeah.
talk to that person who's able to do that, okay, who has done it. And when they tell you that, okay, then now you can, okay, and great things they have done, and you can do even greater things. But first, you have to understand how it works, how it comes about.
And so for me, then, the constant practice, one of the things that has helped me in the last few years to access my imagination, and I think absolutely lean into the success of where I'm at as a creative right now, I started to research people I admired their output and then started to look at their journeys in life. So
That's what
beyond
I'm saying.
their end result, who are they? Some of those people, like I was a fan of, I'm a fan of Einstein, I'm a fan of Beethoven, I'm a fan of Quincy Jones, also before Professor X for them, so many other people closer and further. And I went through a research period when I was like, let me see if I can find books that these men and women, some of them wrote, like Zora Neale Hurston, and I was looking at their work beyond their physical output, and they all did one thing in common. They all went for long walks or meditative like moments by themselves to practice being within their imagination and within their own thought. And
Yeah.
COVID kind of gifted that us in this kind of weird way. And a lot of people ran away from that inner space because it can feel overwhelming to go in that space. But in that space where the imagination becomes accessible, for me in a religious space, that's where you can hear divine self. That's where you can hear versions of yourself in the future. And if you allow yourself, which I did, I went back to then tapping into the 5-year-old Jermaine who could play so healthily in his imagination when there were no limitations. That I knew that as I was performing for the trees and my dogs and the goat outside in my backyard, that they were attentive and hearing me. That there was something that was beyond that. And I wanted that play again within myself. That play where that part of yourself becomes possible again and you can see past it. Because I do believe that it does tie into a lot of the things that we're dealing with in today's world, mental health. Being able to practice your mind at a healthy space, which is, I like to think the imagination is using the mind in a healthy space, can give access to navigating a lot of traumatic spaces that we hold on to and healing those parts of ourselves. The imagination can become accessible and a tool that can be used for that.
Jay, look, you talk about Quincy Jones. Quincy Jones said one thing when about the that project "We Are the World." Quincy said when he sat down and conceptualized the whole thing, or how it was going to unfold, he said the first thing he does, and he says that, well, generally speaking, when he's creating, he says first of all he sees the thing in his imagination, and then he identifies the persons who will make that come alive as a music producer. Okay, so all of those persons who you see were out there, he sent out invitations to them that they came in. That's how "We Are the World" or any other song that he comes into. A writer would say to me, "Look, Michael, when I'm writing commercial scripts, because I do voiceovers, and they say." When I'm writing the script, I heard your voice. I saw you. You were the one I was writing in the mind with. And then they contacted me, and I say, yeah, this is me because she knows me well, and I do it. Okay. Going back to the friend you talked about, Jay, it's not about the friend. The friend with the look, your mistake was going to a friend who maybe had not done or thought about or was understand the power and potential of imagination and how to encourage a dream kind of thing. Okay. So you going to him, he's going to tell you, well, no, well, no, and you can tell where his head is. He's not a bad person, but you just went
Oh
to the
yeah,
wrong
totally.
person.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what you ought to have would have done, what I would suggest that you would have done is go to the persons who are doing what you have done or who will encourage you to do it if they have not done it themselves and say, okay, they would say to you now, okay, so it's like having, tell me about what you're thinking. When you go to a therapist, for example, that's what a therapist does. Okay, tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what you're going. Tell me what you're seeing in your head. And then they help you to clarify whatever is bugging you so you can see it clearly in your mind. Okay? At some, in your mind's eye, whatever you call it. And once you see it clearly, say, okay, fine. Are you seeing the picture clearly now? What would you like to do?
Because what I love about that, and I'm reflecting on, I mean, looking at time, one of the things I like to leave us with is that I see in real time where, for example, full on truth, last night, a dear friend of mine, Carl Williams, had a reading of a new idea that he had in his head, a play. He wrote it, brought, and literally on the Zoom, there were probably 3 or 4 countries on the Zoom call, all sitting there invested in one person's imagination coming to life. And I do believe that the imagination accessing and being utilized does bring community together. It's a space where right now the world needs more community. And in building friendship and curating who you share imagination with, it creates a wonderful space where healing and community conversations can happen. And community is born out of somebody's idea of seeing people come together. And to that point, I'm excited about us practicing our imagination for this future of this world that we're living in now. That I think a lot of the problems and things that we're navigating are fixable and possible if we allow people to find the imaginative space to create what is the new future that we want and desire so much for us to feel a part of and belonging in.
Precisely. Look, wherever you are now in your life, your imagination has played a large part in it. Okay? It's not where you're born or where you came from or your origins, rich or poor. Okay? Rich people have squandered and wasted and they become destitute. Very people who are out of very poor backgrounds have got on to great things. It's how you imagine and encourage and what you do with what you know. So it starts there. So wherever you are right now in your life, and if there's one message I'd like to leave, and this is this, you accept that you played a part in it, but also accept that you can change that.
That
You
is
have
the
the power to
imagination.
change that. And it starts in your imagination. Okay? Are you going to imagine the possibilities and where you want to go? Or are you going to doubt that you can't get there? Because doubt is what kills the dream. It's the dream killer.
Thank you. That's a great way to end today. Thank you almost so for watching and participating. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe, and tell us what you think. And we see you next time on our next episode of Conversations with Michael and Jermaine.
I look forward to it. Okay. And thank you all for watching. And, keep living your imagination.